Hello, lively listeners! Welcome to Games and Feelings, an advice show about playing games, being human, and dealing with the fact that those games involve other humans. I am your host and question keeper, Eric Silver, and the trick that actual play podcasts and videos can play on me that makes me clap my hands like a little baby king is when the GM reveals physical objects that they give out to their players, and their players are like, what?
Yeah.
Perpetual guest Jasper Cartwright, what is the trick that happens on actual plays that makes you clap like a baby king?
I love it, and I managed to do this for the first time a couple months ago when GMs play sound effects that they time. It's so satisfying. Yeah. And I did it the other day where I described a crack of lightning as I hit the space bar on my computer and it went,
that's awesome.
And it was like, yes! I felt like God. It was like the closest I have come to feeling like God, and it was amazing.
What I like about that in both ways is if it's a large crew, you really did get like 10 people to make sure this all happened at the same time. But if you're doing it by yourself, you're like, you're so good at OBS. You actually got lightning crack to happen. Both are equally impressive. Hey, Brian Flaherty, TTRPG podcast producer of My First Dungeon. What's the part of actual play podcasts and videos that makes you clap like a baby king?
I like it when the game master is describing something really epic and there's music behind it. The music is swelling and then the music cuts out or ends right before they say the most important and impactful line. Ooh, it gets me especially if that's right at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Satisfying.
Can I say, though, you could say literally anything and with that amount of backing and it would sound epic.
Oh, for music is the cheat code to podcasts and film. Like, start throwing in music anytime you want. You're going to learn really quickly how to make things sound really cool.
For sure.
I'm now trying to think of the silliest thing that I could read aloud that I could do right now, and then Misha would make sound really, really epic.
Can you describe the process of not like actually eating food, but the process of going to the shop and buying the food?
Okay, for sure.
No, everybody, wait. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it.
Come on, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. Go.
The first thing you have to do is write down all of the ingredients you need. Nothing's more frustrating to you than realizing you needed something for a really important meal and then realizing you left something at home. Then, if you have a grocery store you like, you got to go to the good grocery store that you like. Or if you don't have a good grocery store you like, you have to go to the bad grocery store. And then they're out of pork belly. But today, there's a special on rotisserie chicken.
Boom! Whoa, my gosh!
This episode produced by...
It's Misha Stanton. It's always Misha Stanton. That's right.
It's always Misha Stanton.
I was going to read the lyrics of Rubber Ducky from Ernie.
Ducky, you're the one.
Rubber Ducky, you're the one.
You ever seen William Shatner do like a dramatic reading of something?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
So fun.
Just like that. Well, obviously, we're not going to talk about Rubber Ducky the whole time, but we could. We're talking about actual play, crunchy stuff, how to make actual play content. Jasper, you and I talk about this stuff all the time, but I decided to find Brian roaming the streets of Brooklyn, New York, who just so happened to come through to the studio in person. It's been really fun.
You mean you went out and found an actual professional?
Yes, I did. That
was a good idea. Yeah. That was a good idea, man.
In my professional office, it's like a little piece of cheese. It's like, I don't want to be in my WeWork anymore. Can I come hang out with you? It's like, oh, this seems nice in here. And then I close the trap and you can't leave in your mind.
You can't leave.
It's a really nice trap. I mean, I don't know. I could stay in here for a couple of days. It's fine.
There's a big bottle on the wall for you to like lick up water coming out of little droplets.
And if you just tell me how to work that little like wheel that dispenses the treats, like I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. That wheel also edits the podcast, so you just got to go back and forth on it.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's true. Brian, where might people know you from? I know that you've been doing some really tight shit lately.
People might know me from My First Dungeon. It's a tabletop role-playing podcast I produce along with Elliot Davis, Schnook Tessera, and Abby Hepworth. It's a tabletop role-playing podcast. We help first-time game masters build and run their very first one-shot, and then circle back around to discuss what went right, what went wrong, and how we can make their games even better. So basically, we try out a bunch of new systems, bring together a bunch of people to try it out, and then talk to the creators about what went right and what went wrong. And it's all just about having fun.
For sure. I also want to shout out the 20-sided newsletter, which you've currently been doing a real deep dive on how to make actual play content, which honestly, teaching people how to do stuff good. That's just my personal thing, my hot take.
Yeah, 20-sided newsletter. We're very proud of it. It's a weekly newsletter for people who like games, make games, and like making games. I'm all about taglines today, apparently.
It's good. It's good shit.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you were just in our most recent issue. Given some advice about actual play podcast production.
It was fun. Listen, it's all
You got Eric to give you advice on?
I did. I mean, I was desperate.
Fine.
I had to round it out.
Yeah,
so.
I was talking to Brian about how to be really, really grumpy online so no one takes you seriously.
Yeah, he sent me like a dissertation. I had to edit it down into a blurb, but he seems happy. So
It was like, fuck this.
I edited it down to a blurb, but I changed all the words. But,
Yeah.
otherwise it was basically Eric.
I had to put the whole thing in quotes. So I don't know.
It's like this does not count as the ideas and opinions of the person creating the newsletter. This is another thing. Well, wonderful. I have a lot of questions here, both from me and from people who have written in questions about what it's like to make actual play content. But first, let's talk about the games that are giving us feelings. Tabletop RPG Edition. Let's recommend a independent tabletop RPG that we really like and the feeling that it gives us. You got to give me an adjective, like we're doing a live journal post, which is a really good example that lots of people understand.
I'm going to shout out the Avatar, The Last Airbender TTRPG, because I know some people that worked on it, and it's super cool, and I haven't had a chance to play it yet, mostly just because I haven't managed to get a crew together, and because the way my brain works, I'm like, hey, I should do this on a podcast. Instead of just doing anything for fun now, I monetize
I'm
it
on the
all,
same
or
thing.
attempt to do that, and therefore I don't do anything for fun anymore. So that's why I haven't played it yet, but I really want to play it, and I've already checked out the rules, and they're sick, and it's cool, and obviously the new TV series is coming out on Netflix, which I have mixed emotions about. But anyway, I just thought it was a good tie-in. Go check it out. Go support those people. I think it's Magpie Games.
Magpie Games, yeah.
Correct. What's the feeling you get? Is it
the feeling I get is was it too recent to say nostalgia?
No, nostalgia counts.
Is that
It's
yeah?
good.
Because I feel like as a kid it was like my entire shit. Like I've watched I literally recently watched through the entire thing.
of course.
So,
Always good for a
I
rewatch.
love it
Always a good time to
so
watch that
much.
show.
So yeah, nostalgic is what I'm gonna say.
Then the nostalgia counts also. I saw a tweet going around that's like, they call them spaghetti westerns because they were westerns made in Italy. I think that we should call this group of cartoons hamburger anime because they're United States made anime, and Avatar: The Last Airbender is number one in that list.
Hamburger
And I feel like that
anime.
genre specifically conjures so much nostalgia. I feel like it was when we were all
For
in
sure.
high school. Was
Yeah.
like the peak of hamburger anime.
Hamburger anime, I love it.
I'll
Okay,
link to
yeah,
that
I accept.
tweet. That tweet's absolutely incredible.
That's an unbelievable tweet. I hope that went viral for you.
Oh, it did. Oh, it
Whoever
100%.
sent that.
It went viral in my heart, and then I got sick, and I had to lay down for 3 days.
Yeah, because having a viral thing in your heart is definitely bad.
It's really bad. I went to the hospital.
It's true. That's okay. Good. I'm glad you got that.
Definitely
checked out,
solved in
dude.
3
That's good.
days as well.
Yeah, it was fine. I was totally fine, and it was all good. Brian, what's a tabletop RPG that's giving you feelings?
Ooh, this is a nostalgic day too, because I'm also feeling nostalgic about Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, the new slice of life game from Possum Creek and Jade Dragon and M. Veselak, and a bunch of other people. Because that game is just, it honestly, in the rules, it describes itself as like a half-remembered Saturday morning cartoon, and it absolutely gives off those vibes. Been playing a bunch of that recently, and it is so much fun.
It's incredible. I feel like it's doing a lot of stuff that people have been trying to do in tabletop RPGs, but only like suggesting it or skirting at it, or like, I wish we could have done it, but it doesn't make any sense really to put it in print. And then they're just like, oh no, we're just gonna do all this stuff and actually make a whole game surrounded by it, doing a lot of things that we haven't seen in a game like that before.
Possum Creek just does not miss.
No.
They are so good. Everything that Possum Creek puts out, I strongly, highly recommend. Especially Wander Home, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, Sleep Away are all phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I want to give also a special shout out to Jay because we went to a party at their house after I think it was PAX Unplugged, and it was in Philly, and that's
nice.
where Amanda ran into her only friend from college, who she hasn't seen for 6 years.
Whoa, that's what a lovely, that's just so wholesome.
It was wild.
I love that.
That
so
guy
much.
that guy Roy also went to the same LARP camp as Brennan Lee Mulligan. It's really wild.
Wow. Wow, look at that.
Absolutely wild.
Look at that.
I want to feel, hey, I'm not going to feel nostalgic for this one. I want to feel victorious on behalf of Triangle Agency, which is a new game coming out from Haunted Table Games. Shout out to my good friend Caleb. I actually was able to playtest a little bit of this. Basically, Jasper, it's Control, the tabletop RPG.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm down. I'm 1,000% down.
Paranormal investigation tabletop RPG. Clock into work and protect the world in this game of paranormal abilities, corporate horror, and dangerous anomalies. Their goal on Kickstarter was a smidge under 10,000. It is currently raised, as of recording, $187,999. They're absolutely fucking crushing it. And as of recording, it has 14 days to go. I think by the time that this is out, it will have like just a few days left. But I'm sure you can buy this on BackerKit because it is currently thriving and will be here for a very long time. This game is really fun and is also exploring a genre you don't really see. Form following function, I think, is a really important thing coming from independent games of like, why are we playing this game? What is it doing that I can't get from anywhere else? And it's like, this is going to tell us how to play a paranormal game where you work for an agency where they shut down paranormal shit.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Very, very cool.
I back that at like the highest tier, like day 2.
Oh, yeah.
Looks so fun.
It's really, really fun.
I'm probably going to go back to this right now, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it looks great.
There's also like the thing about character creation, there's I can't remember the thing off the top of my head, but there's basically 3 separate things you choose. Like, you know how you in Dungeons and Dragons, you choose like species and class and background. It's by applying this to a different game system, you still are able, it's even more refined of the moves that you get from the 3 different things you get for your class. It's like who you are as a person, you have your abilities as a paranormal agency guy, and then on top of that, you have your job shit that you have at the agency. And then all of those give you different moves.
Dope as hell.
It's really, really good. I'm feeling really victorious. Shout out to Caleb and Haunted Table Games. All right, folks, you want to do some questions? You want to talk about actual play stuff?
Yeah. Can I just say, I want to say just a huge thank you to Brian. I don't know whether it's just your presence here, but that is the quickest we have ever got onto questions. And I think that should be marked. I want to thank you. We might need you to come back, honestly, because the people might really love getting some of their questions actually read out for a change.
We answer questions.
We are.
Wait, no. Back on track. No. This thanks has gone on long enough. It's question time.
Yes.
No. Question
That's
time.
That's what we need, Brian. Go, Eric.
Jasper, we answered so many questions in the sports episode.
This is a bit. Answer the question.
Oh my God. All right, Brian's sick. All right. So I think the first thing that we have to do is set the table here. So people might know me from Join the Party. You might know Jasper from 3 Black Halflings and the various things that he guests on. And Brian, you just introduced My First Dungeon and the wonderful things that you're doing over there. But I think that a good place to start is, why do you all think the actual play genre/art form works? Why do you like it, and why do you think people like it? To be clear of what our definition of actual play is, I think that these are podcasts and videos and streams where people play a tabletop RPG, but sometimes not a tabletop RPG, any game, and kind of role play through it and tell a story as fueled by the mechanics of that game. Would we all agree?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as people make digital products because of that, I want to drill down on what it's like making this thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
So I kind of think what people love about it. So in general, I think that people don't follow story or something. Like, people care about story, but it's not the thing they come back for. People come back for people. Like, you follow your favorite people, you know, influencer culture, whatever. But if you love a person, you want to support them. And I think that there's like a dual nature of actual play shows where there is the story and then there is the behind the scenes story of the people making the story. And those are happening simultaneously. So you get to watch a story being made and you also get to watch the story happen, which is just like, you don't get that anywhere. Like, there's a reason people watch like behind the scenes featurettes and stuff, because you want to see that process, and process is interesting. And in actual play, you get to see both at the same time, and you get to see how people make it and how the things they do right, the things they do wrong, and how it comes together. And it's just a really cool bit of magic that is just always interesting. Even like kind of anyone, it's a fun thing that it feels like anyone can do because there's just kind of an inherent magic to it.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, first of all, I think that's a really great point that Brian brought up. I think that we live in a world now where we all really want that kind of like personal connection and personal feeling. And I think that you don't get that from most other like mainstream media. You don't get that from a TV show or a film because they're kind of set up in a way to make all the people feel inaccessible and kind of up on a sort of pedestal, so it's harder to empathize with them. So I think that's a really good point. The point that I wanted to make, however, was kind of a bit like the horror, like a horror analogy here, which is that for me personally, the scariest thing is always the unknown. Like once I see the bad guy or the demon or whatever it is, I'm like slightly less scared of the movie as a whole, just because I can kind of quantify what it is roughly. And I kind of feel like the same rule applies for our imagination when it comes to actual play, which is that like our limitless ability to imagine things it kind of gets kicked into overdrive by actual play. We get the ability to like dream into these worlds and sculpt a picture for ourselves. So not only do they feel huge and amazing and incredible, but they also feel slightly personal because my version of a particular world is going to feel different from your version of that particular world, even though we're hearing the same stimulus. I think there's something about the lack of kind of clear visual that allows you to kind of dream into it, and I think that it just kind of unlocks people's imagination in like a really, really rewarding way, and in a way where I think people are less critical of it as a medium because inherently they have more of a stake in it, you know what I mean? Right. So like if the world's not clicking for you, then it could also just be that this isn't your vibe, and I think people get that a bit more inherently because they're like, well, I just can't imagine it, you know what I mean? Whereas it's different in like a TV show. If that doesn't kind of look great or whatever, people are like immediately able to kind of criticize or whatever it may be. So yeah, I think something about the kind of boundless imaginative space that it allows the listeners or watchers or whatever to occupy, I think is one of the reasons why it's as popular as it is.
I have to say that's also why I like podcasts the most out of all of these three media that I've assumed. I mean, I also love watching streams and I also love the editing that goes into actual play videos, but like being able to imagine everything in my head and not really having any sort of visual stimulus about like, oh, what is a character supposed to look like, from especially because it's locked into kind of like the artist's version of it. I'm like, no, this is who it is in my head. That's why I love fan artists making content. I'm just like, show me what you think I said is honestly my single favorite thing.
And it ends up being a little bit more participatory because as like I can remember explicitly where I was when I heard like certain moments of my first listen through of like the Adventure Zone balance arc.
Yes.
Like I know exactly where I was on 23rd Street when like that first music cue came in and Buried Blue Jeans came back. Yeah. Like I knew what I was because I was imagining the world. I was participating in that creation a bit more passively than the players, but you're still participating. When you're watching something on a screen, it's just coming at you and you don't have to work at all really to consume it. Whereas when you're listening to an actual play, you can kind of tune that dial however you want, but when you're really into it, you are very actively creating that world with the players, even though you're not at the table.
I agree.
Yeah.
There are some other comps to other media that I've been thinking about in terms of like seeing behind the scenes things on TV shows. It's like what people love about wrestling, I think is also what people love about actual play, is that you don't know what's real and what's not. And then like shifting that kaleidoscope constantly of seeing if the people playing the game are also doing something. It's like there's something else at work other than just telling the story. And honestly, like seeing a game do something that makes everyone else jump is my single favorite thing that happens in actual play. And it's something I really wish more people leaned into, because it's like the game is the engine. If a TV show is a car and a movie is like a bus, because it's like a bigger version of it, it's like, well, this is going to take me where I want to go. A bus I can go on, it's going to bring me somewhere, and a car is also going to bring me somewhere in a longer route than what I'm excited about. But like an actual play show is supposed to be this totally other beast. It's supposed to like go in the water. It's supposed to fly, or it's supposed to dig underground, because the engine is the game. I like that a game turns into story. It's this alchemy that That is, I thought, the whole point of the genre, and seeing like the art go in different directions, I think is really interesting. And also, I think it's like, certainly worth like capital C criticism for people to examine it and the different things that happen within this particular medium. And I mean, I've been calling it an art form because I'm a pretentious New Yorker with a beard. But like the actual player art form, it's like I want crit. I really do want crit.
Yeah. I think that it just sparks something there as well, like just using the vehicle metaphor. I think the air of spontaneity about it, I think the fact that the vehicle can change and that it is supported by the mechanics means that like you get something that truly feels alive. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel staged, or it doesn't feel like some algorithm has said like, well, this guy's kind of hot, so he's gonna live till the end of the movie. You know what I mean? It's like that's not the case here. And not only that, for me, this is my favorite thing about TTRPGs in general, which is when you get towards the end of a session, and as the GM, you go, oh, I know how this ends. Like everything kind of clicks into place. You have that moment where the story is just unfolding in your mind, and your players are with you on that same, like they're also locked in. Maybe they don't fully understand the full arc of it yet, but they kind of feel the direction that we're all moving to. And as a table, you come together and kind of almost like land the plane. You know what I mean? It's almost like the passengers don't necessarily know it, but they're sat in the right places. That means that this plane that's struggling to land or whatever, it makes it easier to land. That's a terrible metaphor, but you kind of get what I'm saying. It's like the idea that everyone is working together to stick the landing, but also the landing, because everyone is in that space, feels kind of inevitable. It's like, this is going to happen, and it's going to be beautiful and seamless. And I just think it's such an enjoyable feeling when you're like, oh, that's it. That's the end. I can feel it. It's right there. Like it's so good.
That's cool. I like the idea that like the GM is driving a plane, but they need like all of the passengers to be like, hey, so what? So like, I need you to dream up what the landing gear looks like. Everyone think about it together.
Come on, everybody. Let's imagine.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It really
and then one passenger's like, oh, sorry, you have landing gear though. That's you're just asking us to do this like a fun game. You have.
It's just an exercise, right? Where you have
it's
the
like,
mechanical piece.
Yeah, I have landing gear, but what do you want landing gear to look like theoretically?
Could you just what's the safest? I think is probably honestly.
I want it to look like exactly what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I actually don't want to. It'll be a surprise. It'll be a fun surprise for all of us if I don't tell you.
And then your kid pipes up and it's like, I think it should be a inflatable flamingo.
Hell yeah!
No!
Hell yeah!
Boom,
the one word everyone wants to hear on an airplane is surprise.
That must be like there must be like a list of like banned words on airplanes, and surprise has to be one of them. I like just yelling surprise has to be on the no-go list.
So I was on a flight once going from New York. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so I was flying from New York to Columbus. And the pilot,
I really sniped that out of the air.
Yeah, you said
I was
Columbus
saying earlier, I was like, man, I don't know why people live in these major cities. Like Columbus is great. It's where all these artists moved and stuff. And I just shot that out of the air.
In the moment, I was like, did he like research me and knows I'm from Columbus?
No, I didn't know that.
What a move.
I was like, what a weird thing to know. But I was flying to Columbus, and the pilot gets on, to say like, hey, everybody, I'm your pilot. We're cruising and we're flying altitude or whatever. And he goes, oh, so right now we're in a little jet stream. It looks like we're going, wow. And then he proceeds to tell us.
Yeah, that's a real word.
Like,
that should be wow.
What are you talking about? Like, no pilot should ever be surprised about how fast the plane is going.
No, but I really want to petition. If this isn't a thing, wow has to be on the list of banned words. If I hear one of the flight attendants look towards something that I can't truly see out of the window and go, wow, like that's bad. That's so bad. Like I can't handle that.
Is a flight attendant sitting down and putting on their seatbelt the equivalent of a player going, uh-oh? Like a veteran player being like, oh, I know what happens next. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, or like them looking down at their character sheet all of a sudden and just not looking up at you for the next 5 minutes because they're furiously going through their spells.
About it, yeah.
That's the equivalent of plugging in there.
I would love to have a quick conversation about this because I think we're joking about it. But it's like, how much do you want to know about a DM or a GM revealing how they feel while things are going on? Or whatever. Because the thing that I struggle with a lot is me saying, oh, I didn't prepare any of that, or me saying, I actually spent 3 straight days coming up with this thing. And then I think that either way, I'm unsatisfied, because I think the thing that I'm now giving up is the magic of my players knowing what or what did not happen, even if it's afterwards. Do I want to tell you about what I did? Because then, like, the magic trick is gone. The kaleidoscope is one of the lenses of the kaleidoscope is fully away. And now you're just like, oh, look at that pretty glass. That glass is pretty pretty.
So just to continue with the metaphor, because you brought up magic, I used to be a close-up magician, and I've studied like a lot of magic, especially card magic. I love it. I still love it to this day. But for a long time, I fell in love with watching it because I was like, I knew all the tricks. Like, I knew what it was, and I could appreciate it for like the craft. But I was just like, okay, I see he's doing the top pass, and then he's doing the class, whatever, yada yada.
Yeah, I feel that way when I watch GMs on streams. I'm like, oh, I see the top pass.
I see the trick. But
it's like this item is on the back of your hand. I see it.
But there is something about that the more you know, there will come a moment, no matter what art form you're learning about, where you'll see something that you can't explain, that gets you. And like, I can think of certain magic tricks, like I saw them, and I know about as much as like a pretty active hobbyist can know. And it absolutely blew me away. And when you get those moments, the magic of it is heightened by tenfold. Because I know so much. I know all the tricks in the book. I know everything that could possibly happen. And then someone gets you, that's when it feels really good. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, actually. I think the idea of crafting a story needs some air of mystery, I think, for me. Like, for me to kind of, like, fully immerse myself in something, I want to I want it to feel as organic as kind of possible. I quite enjoy learning stuff after the fact, you know what I mean? Because then I feel like, for me, I wouldn't mind, like, a DM's journal coming out, like, after I've listened to a whole series. Sure. You know what I mean? Just to, like, find out, like, how their experience was, and what, you know, and they don't have to go into too much detail. I think that's fine, but I definitely think like, whilst I'm in it, I definitely love having that air of mystery, that kind of like feeling of like building. This world feels somehow organic, you know what I mean? Because when I'm listening to something or watching something, you know, even though I am a producer, and even though I've been on film sets, and do you know what I mean? And I've made video games, you know what I mean? I'm not sitting there playing a video game thinking like, I wonder what that was like in the volume that day, you know what I mean? I'm not, like, it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, but maybe if it's like a constant stream of like BTS footage around this video game, maybe I am then thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Can I put a pin in something you just said, as someone who works with video games, and this is Games and Feelings, and I also spend a lot of time listening to like video game podcasts and reading video game criticism online. But then it becomes like that thing where everyone's like, wow, these jumps don't feel good, or all these games need to be 60 FPS. No, they don't. They actually don't. But then it's then it becomes these catechisms, or almost these words that people latch onto of what people think is the stuff in video games, right? I'm just wondering if, as this art form is developing, and because there is not really much capital C crit, now it becomes just like, oh, I love this. Or if I say too much about listen, we're doing it here because I do want to talk about it. Right. But it's like, but it's like, if I say too much on the same feed, and Jasper, I know, actually both of you know this, if I say something on the same RSS feed that has the art on it and also the talkback on it, am I giving people language that only turns them into smarks? Like smart marks, to use a wrestling term, but then all the fun is taken away. I know people in wrestling love being a smark and love seeing the seams, and they love into that, but I don't know if the love is still there if you see the seams of like how much work goes into it. But then again, I'm just being this is like something I've been wrestling with quite a lot.
Yeah, I think it's about how general it feels for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's like, it's very easy for me to disassociate as someone who, you know, has like studied like film for a long time. It's very easy for me to disassociate when watching a film. But if I'd already seen the like how it was made about that exact movie already, I'd probably be sat there going like, oh yeah, I remember they did that. It's almost a bit like with the Mission Impossible movies. I think this is probably a good example.
Very good example.
Because we all know how the big stunt happens before the movie comes out now. Now, that's part of it, and I think that that's a bit of a test case, but I can almost guarantee, even if it doesn't necessarily make it better or worse, that absolutely fundamentally changes how you then perceive that moment, because I will now be sat in a cinema caring for Tom Cruise's life, not for the life of his character.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I'm like, he's actually on the side of a building, or what? Do you know what I mean? It's like a very different thing because it's a very specific example. So I think in my head, I'm like, as long as I can disassociate by going like, this is generally how stuff's made, but I don't know exactly how this was made at the time of watching it, I think I can disassociate enough to enjoy the medium, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I also think that comes with like 150 years of modern film criticism. So that's also why I'm feeling a little bit self-conscious about what I do now, where like, we already touched on this a little bit, but I feel like things got kicked off with Balance with the Adventure Zone, which started around 2016, if I remember correctly, or the first episode came out in 2015 on the My Brother and Me feed, and then they spun it off to a full show. But remember, a show called Not Another Dungeons and Dragons podcast began in 2018. So like I don't know what that signals necessarily, but it certainly signals that like the genre was starting to mature. I don't know if people were getting tired of it now, and now it's kind of kicked off from there. So
I don't know. I honestly could go either way on this. So part of it, like me as a consumer of media, I do like digging into those themes and like seeing how things are made as they're being made. Like we were talking about before, I love the podcast Startup, which is about like a podcast about making a podcasting company. So, and I think there's something great about that, like because you're seeing something you're consuming something at the same time as you're seeing it being made, you kind of form a deeper connection because you're watching the trials and tribulations of it happening. So I do enjoy that, but at the same time, I do love the mystery and the excitement of not knowing what the magic is. Like, I think there is a great joy in feeling that, like, oh my God, I can't believe they planned that 20 episodes ahead. And they've been laying these breadcrumbs the whole time, not realizing that the DM's like making it up as they go.
No, I'm fully prepared. I don't know what you're talking about.
And it's also nice to like have, I firmly believe that like tabletop role-playing games are something everyone can and should do. Like it's not a magic that is that difficult to attain.
Wow, you're saying also Dick Cheney should play tabletop RPGs? Wow.
You know what? Maybe he'd be better for it. Who knows? If we had Dick Cheney play Wanderhome, you're saying this world wouldn't be a little bit better?
He'd be the one guy with a gun in Wanderhome. He'd be that one man. And yes, there is a veteran class, a veteran playbook in Wanderhome. Right, yes. And if you kill someone, you immediately have to stop playing the character, and Dick Cheney will be like, man, I shoot that frog. It's like, all right, Dick, you're gone. You're done. We're done. You played one session.
You're done.
But maybe he would learn from that. He would shoot someone and be like, what, I don't get to play this great game anymore?
No, there are consequences of you shooting someone, Dick Cheney.
I wonder actually whether there is a slightly pre-agreed language to all of this as well, because I do think there are some things that we kind of as a community go, oh, we're okay with knowing that, because everyone knows the classic like, oh, we've met a goblin, his name is Pants Face?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
And now that goblin's going to go on the journey. And we know that's like the bit that we all know. But like you said, though, that like breadcrumb trail of like then big reveal, did the DM just make that up, or did, was that the plan the whole time? That we don't know. And I feel like that's the enjoyable stuff to not know. Whereas like the little things that almost become like inside jokes of like, oh, yeah, they screwed up. They've named that goblin Pants Face, and now Pants Face is going to be coming on the journey.
Now Pants Face is a fan favorite. He's got so much fan
Yeah,
art.
exactly. That's, I think, like an agreed thing, because you can then feel that, and as a DM, you can play into that, and you can be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's me, Pants Face, and it becomes this big, funny, you know what I mean? And I think that's as much a part of the medium as well, because it's like, oh, we've all played TTRPGs, we've all had that experience with our GMs, and, and how desperately they've wanted to get rid of a Pants Face, but yet here we are, and it's kind of relatable and funny at the same time.
Pants Face.
Pants Face comes back
Pants
18
Face.
months later and saves one of your characters by sacrificing Pants Face's self. Pants Face has no pronouns, it's just Pants Face.
Honestly,
it's just Pants Face. Pants Face.
We're joking, but like the biggest like mic drop moment for me that like first got me to really truly love TTRPGs was the Adventure Zone. They introduced a character like episode 3 when
Barry
they realized
Blue
like they
Jeans,
can be funny. They introduced Barry Blue Jeans, who's like a bit character,
and was just like a quest giver in the Mines of Phandelver 5th edition like a written module.
But yeah, they say his real name. They're like, fuck that. Let's call him Barry Blue Jeans. And there's an episode. Spoilers for Balance Arc.
Yes.
There's an episode like 60 episodes in where Barry Blue Jeans has died in like episode 10, and Barry Blue Jeans comes back, and I know exactly where I was in Gowanus. I know what groceries I was carrying when that happened because I stopped and went, holy shit. And that's an amazing moment.
Blue Jeans!
I love
He
him.
said really loudly in the middle of the shot.
It's not that far off. And how many how many artistic mediums make you do that?
Right.
We probably get like one TV show a year.
Yeah,
that maybe
you
does
get,
that.
Can I also
Maybe.
say something about podcasts that you did that in a grocery store and you have to do that while you're sitting on your couch for anything that's visual.
It is fun. It can happen anywhere you're putting on your headphones. Whereas everything else is kind of like a ritualized, okay, we go to the theater, we sit down, we have our popcorn.
Which I love.
Which I love, yeah. I'm not taking away from it.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you're going in prepared for this to maybe happen. With a podcast, that can kind of happen anywhere. In the same way that like the first time I listened to Serial, I was like working out at the gym. And like that was an interesting
Do you know
experience.
Serial, Jasper?
I've had so many people try to get me to listen to Serial, and I know
It's okay.
I will,
It's
but-
fine.
It was cool in the moment.
Oh.
When it was
okay,
of the
cool.
zeitgeist,
thank
it was
goodness.
important.
It's
Now
gonna be
fine.
be now like when you watch like, oh my god, this movie from the 50s, incredible, and you watch it and it's like, it's so slow. What's going on? It's like, oh no, they were the first one to do all of these things.
Yeah.
I had that same
sure,
thing
sure.
with Lethal Weapon. I watched it the first time,
Yes,
and I was
yes.
like, "Oh, these are all tropes." And I realized, like, "Oh no, literally all the tropes came from
They
Lethal
invented
Weapon.
it, yeah.
Yeah. We were literally talking about Lost. We did a big episode on Lost for 3DH.
Yeah.
And it was like very much the same thing of going through and being like, oh my God, they really invented the wheel. Like, it was like, this is kind of a big deal.
I want to pivot a little bit because I think we're touching on some stuff that like it's almost like especially because I promise I didn't want to plug it like this, but like I've recently gotten on TikTok and seeing the D&D memes kind of evolve in a different way. So it's funny how like these inside jokes of playing tabletop RPGs has now defined our understanding and enjoyment of this art form, of this medium. So I think that we have a lot of questions here that are a lot of related to the difference between playing on a microphone and playing at home, either before we started making actual play content or after. I mean, honestly, let's just...
After? What do you mean you can start creating content and then you can go back to having a fun time with your friends?
No.
Good. Yeah, a lot of these questions came from the multitude and Join the Party Discords, and you're all wonderful. This one came from Carl's. Has doing an actual play affected how you feel about home games being more of a pastime? Basically, does it feel like more work rather than a fun reprieve?
It's funny. Both me and Jasper are aggressively nodding our heads.
Furiously nodding.
I agree. I started a home game with like guys who make actual play stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is so much fun. I love it. And then of course it fell off because we didn't have the time to schedule more of it. And it was like, we were all just sitting on our hands during the height of the pandemic. And then as soon as that went away, we stopped playing. And
I had the same thing. I did 52 weeks straight during the pandemic with a great group. And we haven't picked it back up.
Yeah, we did.
The only thing that we did was like make stupid jokes, being like, wow, if I did this, I'd really get canceled. And it was like, roll to hit. It was just like a lot of shit like that. But we're like at the point of like where we were all saying dark jokes about that when we had nothing better. It's like that was only the only thing I couldn't do because it's not funny for other people to hear.
This is the weird thing. I would be more than willing to play in a home game. I just cannot bring myself to DM a home game.
That's fair.
Like that's way like prepping for a home game is way too much just like work now. You know
I'll
what I
run
mean?
a game for you, bud. We don't have to record. I like GMing not on a microphone. It feels like I'm putting up shots at the gym if I was a basketball player. Truly, that's the way that I like.
That's how I feel. That's honestly how I feel as
yeah.
a player. Like that's how I feel when I get to play when I'm not on a microphone. Is like, oh, I just get to feel like I'm stretching, testing some stuff, seeing if things work. It's kind of nice. It's kind of fun and freeing. It's just like it's prep for me. Like I've always said to my home game friends, I'm like, look, we'll run a completely improvised campaign if you're down to do that, because I just don't have the wherewithal to be sat for like hours going through the like, okay, what's King Wenceslas up to or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Is he making Christmas worse?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing.
Do you guys find yourself in like recorded actual play shows doing less prep over time?
Yeah, for sure. I think it depends on what it is.
Sure.
But I think it's the same way that I approach acting, right? Which is that like I think when I first started, it was really about like I've got to do X like 1 through 10 checklists to make sure that I'm fully prepared to do this. Whereas as I've got better and as I've got older and I've got more used to it and I'm in more of a rhythm, I go, okay, actually like 4 of the things on this checklist kind of just use up energy, which I maybe don't have right now. And actually I know that that's going to be there. You know what I mean? Like I know I'm going to be, I can lock in without doing all the things on this, like sheet kind of thing.
Right.
And I also like, I just find that through kind of getting better and a bit more familiar with the process, I've got better at like improvising, and actually I prefer in a lot of instances to improvise. And so I don't like to over prep because I then get in my notes and I'm sat just staring at my notes. It's why I always find like the beginning of campaigns so hard, because you're like, I'm like, I've got so much lore to get through, you know what I mean? Before I can get to the point where everyone's in the tavern just dicking about and having a good time.
You kind of just want to like brain dump directly into your players' heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like again, I'm being a little hesitant of what I'm saying because I don't like saying how much I prep or don't prep. That
I guess I did. Okay, so I guess I've answered the question with my action by asking this question. So
Right.
I guess I like to hear more.
You like to? I mean, I would like to say it. It's just like sometimes I feel like it gets not taken out of context, but like as people who make stuff, you're like, oh yeah, I do that. So I'm going to use Jasper's thing as a jumping off point because it's a very good way to describe it. Yes, I used to prep a ton, and then I'm like, oh wow, I ran this session without prepping, and now I feel like I prep a lot on stuff I want to prep a lot, like building out, like I've been trying really hard to get better at describing settings, and I've done really hard to try to like give people definable characteristics, like clothing. So I'm prepping that, and I want like if I don't write this down, I'm going to be very bad at doing it in the moment. So I need to write it down, and then I end up making like whole other games inside of games, and things. I have very like unbalanced prep. Sometimes I do a ton of prep on one part of a session and then I leave the rest open because I'm much better at improvising than I used to be 5 years ago.
I think, I'm very much the same, where it's like you kind of call your shots. When there's a session is kind of on rails, in a sense, you're kind of like, okay, great, I can go
Or it's already like set up. So I'm like, let's see how this plays out.
Like, you know what the first beat is, and then your players will decide the rest. It's like, okay, great. But then there's also the session where your players are like, hey, we buy an in-world magazine called The New Yorker, and then you make a 32-page real-life New Yorker magazine.
Right, exactly.
Which I did during the pandemic.
Tight.
I'll send it to you. It's
very good.
Awesome.
I want to see that. Yeah, we'll link it. Do you want to link it in the episode description?
Oh, I'd love to link it in the episode description.
All right, make sure to send it. I'll link it in the episode description.
Amazing. I think for me, it's like, so this is a really good example. I'll do a ton of prep for like a big combat session that we're going to do because, for instance, like just mechanically, I want to be as in the moment as possible when I'm running multiple, characters. We've got environmental stuff going on. I want to know what's happening in the map. I like to use theater of the mind as well, so I'm not going to have like a ton of minis and stuff. So it's all relying on me keeping this very consistent image in my head. So I'll prep like a madman for combat, but then the session after a big combat, I almost never prep a single thing because I always think there's such a beautiful kind of catharsis which falls after like a big, huge, especially if it's like we're talking like almost like end of an arc type combat. Yeah. I really want to know how the players are feeling after that, what they want to do, and so I've really tried to just like hand over the reins to the players in that moment to be like, where are your guys at after this? Because this has been a harrowing experience. This has been a potentially world-altering experience. People might have died, got really hurt. You might have revealed things, all this kind of stuff. So I really then hand over. So I think. To jump off what you said, Eric, it's a very unbalanced prep because it's very much about like some sessions I'll plan loads, other sessions I'm gonna go in with as much of an open mind as I possibly can so that I can just respond off of what people want to do.
Yeah, I mean that's true. That's certainly true. I want to have an entire conversation about running initiative on a podcast, but I think that might take us for the rest of the time, and we have other questions. That we
Easily.
But I'm 100% agree with you. Again, there's a thing. I don't want to say I don't prep because it's like I did all my prep in the beginning of the arc or in the last session, and then I'm just gonna let it go and see what happens. Like, yeah, I could keep playing for another 3 hours because everything I need to know is already done in play. So I'm 100% with you.
Definitely a pre-prepper.
Can I just tell you one quick thing about initiative that I think if you don't already know, you might like?
So cool. Yes, because you're gonna reveal my trap card, and I might end up talking about it.
So this isn't D&D initiative, but the recent game Die, the RPG from Rowan Work and Deckard, Kieran Gill, and Stephanie Hans. Their initiative, they have initiative in the game, but it's defined by which character is most narratively important. So like whoever it makes sense to go first goes first, and then you choose as a group who goes next. That's pretty cool. That is in the book, and also in the book is a great line. It's like talking about how to prep for a session, and the last line of it is, "If you've read this far, you should stop prepping."
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So excellent book. We ran a great season about Die. I'm pitching my first dungeon, but I think that is a great note on initiative. Like, who does it make sense for? Who's narratively important here? Is it Bob, who's fighting his evil long lost uncle? Bob's going first, baby.
No, I like it. It's more about like going. It's like, all right, you go, and then you go, and then you go. I feel like that's that's inherently against the narrative flow of actual play, and I just like, I should play a different game, you know? On some, it's like, But I always try to come up with other stuff.
One thing that I have started doing. Apologies, the last one.
It's fine.
One thing that I have started doing is I found it really, really helps my players in between rounds. Just as like a random bit of advice, is doing a round summation at the end.
Yes, that's good.
Basically, like going back through everyone's turns to basically say, like, so what happens is Eric swings in with a sword, cuts under here, the guy kind of parries that one attack and goes here. Then you come in with this spell which gets deflected, and do you know what I mean? I think it adds that kind of like slightly cinematic element where everyone then kind of really understands the concept of this is all happening at the same time. And also I found that it leads to then some interesting things for me as a DM, because I suddenly put everything together at the end of the round and I go, oh, actually, like, if that did all happen at the same time, maybe this is going to happen at the top of the round. You know what I mean? They've deflected this spell which careened into the ceiling, and do you know what I mean? Like, just little things like that I'm like, oh, we can do something here that might make like a top of the round lair action a bit more interesting than just like fog appears because they're vampires. You know what I mean? Which, again, nothing wrong with that, but like,
I need that clip for I want to make that my text tone is you saying that.
Fog appears.
Fog appears because they're vampires.
Fog appears because they're vampires. There you go.
Oh my God.
There's 2 reads
Can
for
we make that
you.
a ringtone?
You want to make that your ringtone.
I want it to be a ringback tone. When someone calls me, they hear it. That would be great.
Fog appears. Eric will be at the phone momentarily.
Yes.
That's a wild thing that we don't have. That's not an option.
What used to be?
It was only a thing like in the early and mid 2000s.
And I remember I was so jealous of my friends that had them.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool.
It's like they were playing pop punk to you while you called them. You know what I mean?
I mean, the thing is, I'm mostly thinking this is just for people that I want to annoy.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty good
100%.
at answering quickly for if I want to annoy. But like, I'm just thinking if you're on. Like, if you spam call me and then you get Nyan Cat, like, you deserve that. You know what I mean? You deserve to have that in your brain for the next, like, 5 hours.
I'm just thinking of that John Mulaney bit. What's new, pussycat?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Or just like a, hey, it's me, and then like a nice big gap, and then
and a fake out.
The tone starts again. Yeah, a little fake out. Love that. And then it goes to my voicemail. Oh.
And the voicemail, it also has a fake out.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Multiple fake outs.
I hate that so much.
I want to make that so bad.
The reason that you hate it, Eric, is because you know that eventually you're going to try calling me. Yeah. That's what you're going to hear.
It's like, it's like your voicemail is going to be like, oh, hey, what's up, Eric? If you can't hear me, I'm just in the bathroom right now. Boop, just kidding. It's a voicemail.
Amazing long cut if you choose a person's name. Because then a bunch of people don't get it.
I would pick Eric, I think.
Excellent joke. That is commitment to the bit.
I think that we've started to hit a lot of these questions. I just want to say some of the ones that we've already answered, like sneaky sloths. What things should you prepare before a session, and what things shouldn't you prepare a session? Any stories about preparing for the wrong thing or not preparing the right thing? I think we hit that as well. But I do want to touch on this, which is from Aiden. What's a complication you came across while planning or playing on mic that completely blindsided you?
I got this one. We were playing the game Die. And Die is basically goth Jumanji. You're players, and you get sucked into your D&D game. It's awesome. If you haven't checked it out, I absolutely recommend reading both the comic that is like Hugo nominated and the RPG. And players go into the world and they're talking about, they have their first battle and they're like, oh, we got to go to the nearby village. And I was doing the thing that DMs sometimes have to do, where they take notes on what the players have just said, because it's a lot of improv. They've said a lot of names of things, so I'm writing it down to make sure I remember. And one of my players named Chinook Tessera is our kind of resident chaos gremlin.
Of course.
He's a great stand-up comedian in New York. And I stopped listening for like 30 seconds. And he said something, my brain tuned back in, rewound, and like caught up. And I realized that he said, "Oh yeah, that town down there, made up entirely of children." And everything I had planned for that town could not be done with children. So I was just like scrambling. So I made it. It was true. We got to the town and we kind of like spun it as like, these are ancient, these like 400-year-old people, but they all look like children. And
real anime.
Very
vibes,
quickly,
yeah.
I was describing the Willy Wonka world. Like, oh yeah, there's like a bicycle that's on a tightrope going across. And there's all these kids drinking alcoholic chocolate milk and stuff. And then, and then you see, so there's some normal elves as well. And we only talk to the normal elves.
That's amazing.
I mean, isn't that what you want, though? Your players to participate? Like, sometimes I get
love it. I love it.
It's like,
so
I don't want this to be Eric monologuing at you and you treating me like I'm a visual novel. Like, I do want you to put something in there, because it's like a game of hot potato.
I'd listen to the Eric monologuing actual play, though. I'm just, you know what I mean? I'd listen to that.
I appreciate that.
Like,
I mean, it helps that I'm the best DM in podcasting.
You are the best DM in podcasting. That's what I was about to say. I was about to say you're the best DM in podcasting.
I keep hearing this get bandied around, and I've yet to see the proof in the pudding yet.
It's funny how there truly is only two people bandying this around. It's me and Eric, and the two people that are saying this currently. But it's going to catch on.
It's all over my feed somehow. I don't know what you guys have done to my feed.
Lots of people are saying it. A lot of people are saying it. They really like it. It's all happening. That's the first time I've done a Trump impression. I can't believe I just did that in 2023.
Yep.
Here we are.
It's still relevant. You should keep developing that skill. It'll definitely pay off.
Yeah, well, I'm the first person to do a Trump impression. Oh, God. Well, as the best DM in podcasting, for sure. Thanks for not disputing it, Brian. But I mean, the best games of the best tabletop RPG games are a game of hot potato, where it's like, where everyone is really competent and you get to throw it to each other, and all of you are trying to do it, not to put a foot down trying to trip someone up necessarily, but just to like toss them the hot potato. I've been
telling, especially when I have new players at my table, I like to tell them, don't try to break the world, but know that you won't break the world. Like,
that's a good
do
one.
Whatever you want. It's going to be fine as long as you're not malicious.
Yeah.
And I think on my first dungeon, we play a lot of games, and a lot of them recently have been GM-less or like more collaborative. So
I
like
love GM-less games. They're so good.
Actually, this is my tip for GMs out there and for players. If you haven't played a GM-less game like Wander Home or something, go try it out just once. There is something really great and rewarding about learning to let go a little bit of some of what you've created, having that be a more collaborative space. And it's really fun to like get to a big moment in a game that you're GMing, like you are the, capital G, capital M GM, and going to your players and being like, so this guy walks up, he's got, the relic in his hand. What does this person look like?
Oh, I love that.
And like letting them build the world, because then when someone else gets to build some of those big moments, they become so much more invested in what that thing is. Like a lot of times players just get to build the goofs and spoofs of a game. But if you let them build the hard outlines of a world as well, they're going to really care about that thing.
This is something really, really important as well. Like, I will always at the start of a new campaign get every player to just, if it's like a big campaign or if it's like an ongoing thing, I will always get players to tell me what their hometown, their home area, looks like. Who's there? What the houses look like, what music they play on festival days, what, you know what I mean? Like just as much detail as I can, because this works twofold. It gives them a huge amount of investment in the world, which you can then extrapolate out, you know what I mean? Because you can make that town or that city a bit notorious and other people have heard of it and they can be talking about it in cross-chatter and stuff like that, which is really enjoyable for the player. But also, it gives you, the DM, exactly what this player is after, like what kind of things they want to do and see, because you're like inherently as a player, you're going to describe something that you're like is really close to your character, is really close to the vibe that you're after, and do you know what I mean? So it's going to teach you some stuff about your players, which you can then use to kind of, again, like reverse engineer, get them engaged. Do you know what I mean? If they describe this super gothic noir, cathedral which his family lives in, then it's like, okay, cool. This dude's probably going to want some like gothic-y stuff in the campaign, and that's like going to increase that level of buy-in, because they'll also feel like, oh, that's kind of like my hometown. Like maybe I kind of, do you know what I mean? It's like, I think that that increases buy-in for sure.
so I still have a podcast called the 20-Sided Podcast, which is like our kind of long, like our more traditional actual play show. And for a while, I was doing a companion show called Cannon Fodder. And the idea of it was I'd bring on people, we'd spin the wheel of world building, and it would have like a thing, and we'd build the world that we're going to be playing in. So like,
Of course.
it would have like, sayings or greetings or minced oaths or, food or something. And every single episode, the same thing happened without fail. I'd bring on like a comedian, and we'd spin like, food. And I'd say, okay, we're going to go to this continent. What do they eat here? And I had Tim Platt on from Rude Tales of Magic, and he said, they eat mud. Like every comedian made
To I also say that's what Tim Platt would say.
Oh, yeah.
And he also eats mud.
Every single comedian came on and they said like the dumbest poop joke to start. But then I would dig into them for like 45 minutes, be like, all right, so they eat mud. Let's like dig into that. What is that mud made of? Why do they eat it? What's
The
about
consequences of their actions? No.
You dig in, but every single time without fail, the comedian would start with like the goofiest spoof they could ever think of, and by the end, they were incredibly invested in the thing they built. And it could have been as dumb as food, but the second you bring it up one time in a campaign,
Sure.
they're so fucking pumped to see it.
This is a question that I think is important because there are three more questions I super want to hit.
Hell yeah.
So the first thing is, hey, because you brought up comedians, hey, just to say, do you need to have done 4 UCB classes to be in actual play?
No.
I don't know. I recently found out what UCB was. So
Jasper,
no.
you don't have to make yourself sound less American. It's fine.
No, I'm not American, man.
Very nice. UCB, how much?
I want to clarify, that was not the voice I was doing.
That was what I was doing. I was doing more.
I was doing this one. I don't know what it is, to be honest.
We are 2 different guys. Very nice.
We're just 2 wild and different crazy guys.
I've never done any improv. Absolutely not.
But as you could tell by that little improv that I just did, I am in fact a professional without going to UCB. So no, you don't.
And honestly, if you watch actual play, if you've watched a season of Critical Role, you've learned enough about like improvising and performing. Like by consuming stuff like that, you are kind of actually learning, even if you're not trying to.
Yes, you've seen good and bad. Yeah.
This is a genuine little a thing. I used to, and this is no word of a lie, I used to despise improvising. I used to absolutely hate it with a fiery passion. At drama school, I was like the least funny dude when it came to improvising because I couldn't get out of my own head. I absolutely hated it. I was like, give me a script, tell me where to stand, and I'll do it. I did not enjoy it at all. But the second I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, I was like, oh, wait, I can do this. I love improvising now, to the point where I've even considered doing an improv show, which is, I'm still a couple of years off, but like I thought about it, you know what I mean? And that's a really big journey for me. So I would say that like D&D can be a good improv school, honestly.
When I first moved to New York City, I fell into a group of a bunch of comedians. A bunch of them were improvisers, a bunch of them were stand-ups. And I wasn't a comedian, but I was the magician, so they'd have me on their shows, and like, I'd be the break from all the improv comedy.
So funny.
But I went to a ton of improv 101 shows, and every single time I went, I'd be like, this would just be better if you wrote it down and like edited it. Like if you made this into a sketch, it would be good. I was like, every improv set would be better if it was a sketch, if you took time and like did some stuff. And I think my career choices in general have kind of reflected that. But now someone said something to me that really impacted me, that you cannot film danger. Like you can't capture danger. It can only be experienced in the room. And I think actual play gets probably the closest to that, like especially live streams and things. Because when you see someone improvising there is a certain amount of collaborative fear that everyone has in the room of like wishing for someone to do well. And like that exciting energy can only exist if it is being made up in the moment. And I think that's the same reason why, like, when we see in action movies, like, if you know that the driving stunt actually happened with a car, like, Baby Driver, that there's actually a driver doing those stunts.
Yes.
It hits. Even if the stunt's not crazy, it's just like a guy going around a turn in a cool way. It really hits. You feel it. But then when you see cars jumping out of buildings in Fast and the Furious, it doesn't, like, it's cool to see. It's spectacle, but you don't feel it in the same way.
Yeah, it's the Mission Impossible thing all over again. It's like holy shit, they actually did that.
Yeah.
What the hell?
It feel like just inherently, and maybe there'll be a time when like AI and CGI is like can
no, we are
it.
not talking about that. But I'm putting my X card down, talking about AI.
My only point is, I don't anticipate there's ever going to be a time when like something can generate or something can
100%.
can make that feeling of danger. It kind of has to be present. I think we just inherently know it, and that's the exciting part about improv and like seeing live theater and live performance. And I think actual play gets the closest of any of the like art forms to replicating that while still being recorded.
Yeah. I also want to say that, like, I find that improv is only one thing that goes into good actual play. I think that, to use a sports metaphor here, is like, you know, you see Usain Bolt run and he's so fast, right? I think it's more interesting to me if someone who's incredibly good at American football or basketball is also crazy fast and like 6'4" and can do the skills the most. It's just one element, part of this game, and doing this thing that pulls together all this other stuff. I mean, the thing in baseball, in American baseball, is you have to have all these tools. Like being a 5-tool player means you're like good at hitting and like throwing and catching and batting and fielding. Yes. And like, that's what I think is it's this amalgam of all these different things instead of just one thing, which is why I love like crunchier actual play shows that isn't just like disguised long form improv, because that's another thing. Then I'd rather just go watch someone sprint instead of pretending that like a game of soccer is a track meet. You know what I mean? So I think that's, I just want to say that it's one element of everything involved. There's one question here from Lyle. How do you balance polishing things for release without losing that organic feeling? What you were saying about the danger. Man. There is a sweet spot that feels like a fly on the wall of friends playing D&D, but with all the 5 minutes to look up the rules, go to the bathroom, and get snacks removed, but seamlessly. I would also say there's a lot of other stuff that gets removed or added or enhanced on top of that. Like, is there a balance? How is finding that balance going?
So I may not be the one to answer this, if I'm honest, because I'm pretty far on the far end of production. I do an intense amount of post-production, sound design, music, because I really love it. I really like it. Yeah. But I do try to keep in, because ultimately the conceit of my first dungeon in the show is that we're teaching you to play a game, we're bringing people together who've never played it, and we're learning together. Like, our hope is like, we're helping you learn new games. Like, try this new thing. It's fun. It's different. You don't just need to play D&D. You can try these other games that can get you closer to the story you want to tell, rather than using like the Swiss Army RPG of D&D. But because of that, I cut out a ton of like little moments. I don't know if I hit the sweet spot. I hope I do. But I think as long as you keep in the soul of it, the goofs and the spoofs of people at the table, like, all I'm cutting out is like ums and ahs and dead space. Like, I'm trying to cut out the things that make people sound like they're thinking a little bit, but I keep in the moments where they're making the decision. So you cut out some of the thought, but you keep in the decision. And when you're using, sound effects and music, I'm not trying to hide things. I'm trying to amplify. Because ultimately, when you're at the table, the world in your head at the table is so vast. And like, when you're playing D&D, like, you hear the soundtrack in your head in those like most epic moments. All I'm trying to do with music and sound design is replicate that experience that's happening at the table, and like how epic and cool and badass it is to people who weren't there and can't quite experience it in the same way because they're not actively participating.
Yeah, I don't think there is a sweet spot, to be honest. I think it's a really unique, impersonal thing, like the vibe. You know what I mean? Like, some people absolutely love Critical Role, which is 4 hours, like no real edits, all like live in the moment, like, music and whatever being played. Some people love Dimension 20, which is more edited, and then some people love like Dark Dice, for instance, which is like even further than Dimension 20, which is like
At all of our home games, Jeff Goldblum shows up.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But I mean that like, it's a very personal thing as to like what you enjoy when listening to an actual play. I loved listening to JTP because I loved the flow of it. It felt very filmic. For me, it felt very visual, which sounds weird. Do you know what I mean? It felt less like I was less thinking about you guys sat around a table or on a Zoom playing the game. I was more thinking about like the visuals of the world. You know what I mean? Whereas some people like that, seeing, some people want to see like the Dimension 20 thing of like imagining the people at the table and those are the people that I know and like, and etc. So I just think it's the piece of advice I would say if someone's looking to do this, do whatever you enjoy, because ultimately you need to be able to sustain it and you want to be able to kind of continue doing it. But also I think that's the easiest way for you then to feel like, to Brian's point, exactly that, when you're capturing the soul of the show. Because I think that's exactly where I'd say is the most important thing, making sure that you keep the essence of whatever you found at the table.
I think I agree with you. I don't think there's a sweet spot. There is that spectrum, and you get to choose where you decide on it. I do think there are some like minimum thresholds you should hit Because if you're trying to make an actual play that's going to be on mic, you have to remember that there's a player that is not at your table, that's the audience, that's going to be consuming this as well.
Yeah. I think to help this a little bit, I think the thing you need to remember is that it's not a home game. That's more the thing is like, Jasper, it's funny those two examples you put up of Dimension 20 and Critical Role. It's like, yeah, Critical Role is just a game of friends recording, just playing for 4 hours. Like, those guys are also all professional voice actors. They're professional actors. And like all these people, and so many people work on Dimension 20. Right? Like, look at those credits. So many people work there.
So many.
And I just think it's more like minimum threshold. I agree with you, but it's also to say like minimum threshold is that we are professionals making art. And like, that's the thing that you don't want to confuse.
Yes.
Is that like people there is
100%.
no sweet spot because it's not the same. And I worry that once people forget that, once people think it's like, wow, this is the best home game I've ever seen. I know, but the vibes are home gamey. And that's the soul of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a soul of a thing you do at home, but it's being raised by an artistic floor, and it's a different thing, and yet it's a different thing.
Yes,
for sure. I think the only thing to remember, especially like with this is very specific to podcast actual play, is there are moments in every game where if you're at the table, it makes sense to have silence, and like if you see someone's face going but they're not saying anything, that's exciting and that communicates information visually. But when it's just audio, just a whole bunch of silence that doesn't make any sense, it's just cutting out those things that don't translate. I think that's the only floor. And trying to get rid of distractions with like, make sure your mics are set up right and, make things sound good so that the audience can come in and just be interested in the story and the home game and the vibes that they're hearing and not be distracted by anything else that's happening because of technical or because of translation issues between something that is a collaborative, in-person medium being rendered for the purely audio form.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to know the form. You have to know the form, and you have to know what your form is. You know what I mean? Like, what format is your show taking? Is it going for that more home game vibe? Is it going for, and that's still exactly to Eric's point. You're still going to be a certain conceit to that because you are going to have to edit it to make it feel more home gamey for a podcast audience because it is a curated show. But it's important that you understand what is the form, what is the vibe that we're giving. Three Black Halflings is chaos. Like, people love the chaotic energy that we have. So for us, it's about cutting a lot of like dead air out of like actual play stuff and making sure it feels zippy, but then leaving in all the like insane gaffes that we do, and we go on for like 10 minutes talking about how this camel is obsessed with my character and wants to like try and form a legal marriage with him.
Because that's,
you know what I mean?
That's the soul of the show.
Exactly, that's the soul of the show. Exactly.
And I just want to do a quick addendum here. And I know everyone says this, and I hated it before I started things. Like every filmmaker, every famous filmmaker says this, the equipment doesn't matter. I just want to say that real quick, because if you're thinking of doing this and are like, oh, but there's so many barriers to entry, I did a whole series in the 20-sided newsletter about like how you can do this cheap.
It's good.
And just to be very specific, like our upcoming season of Good Society, one of our players is Katie Maravich. She bought a $60 microphone that plugs directly into her computer. And that's what we used, and it sounds great. Like, you do not need to break the bank.
The best equipment that you can get for recording a podcast is silence. If you can get to a quiet place,
great line.
Generally, like the mic it doesn't matter so much. The reason that podcasters buy more expensive mics is because it means that I can leave windows open on hot days and it's less of an issue. That's the only reason we buy more expensive mics, is so that the recording is more fun. But like generally, if you can be somewhere quiet, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a great. I'm gonna like get that on a T-shirt or something. That's so good.
Yeah. I actually that was like, I came up with that in the moment, and I was like, this is
but now you ruined it. Because it was, now we know it was improvised.
I know. Now we're luxurious. I thought you. I don't want to know if you had written it down or you just came to you. I need to exist in the moment.
Actually, you know what? I kind of like knowing that it was improvised. Like, genius does just happen sometimes.
Yeah. We are now getting into this point, and I think it's our last question. This is from Marina. What's something you wish you knew when you started out making actual plays? Now, this is different from all of us. I think it's important for all of us to go around and say, what year was it when we put out our first actual play episode?
2001?
2001?
I think so. 2000. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, 2021.
Oh, 2021.
2001.
Oh, whoa, that's just a solid 20-year difference.
He's like, yeah, dude, I was recording 3.5. No one liked it. It was wild. I used to download it on people's iPods for
How did
them.
you even have the equipment? Like,
It's like, yeah, I was listening to an edit of it when 9/11 happened. It was crazy.
I was 10 and just killing it. I think 2021.
Okay. I think mine was 2017. And Jasper, I think yours was 2020, yeah?
yeah, 2020. Pretty sure it was the end of summer. It was like September 2020, I want to say.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So before that, in the days and weeks before, what's one thing you could give a piece of advice to yourself?
Okay, so I think Eric, as the elder statesman of the group here, you should go first or last. I don't know. It's up to
I'll
you.
go
You're
first.
the elder. I'll defer to you as the one who's done this.
Yeah,
the
I'll
longest.
go first.
As the professional. of
Oh,
the room.
thank you. I'm super professional.
So professional.
I think the thing that I think about the most and I wish I had like embodied is just like do your own thing and lean into your own thing. Because I think at the time in 2017, the Adventure Zone is popping off, and now everyone's starting to make an actual play podcast. And like, there's this thing called Critical Role that seemed really hard to get into, and some guys in Acquisition Incorporated, it was too dense, and I did not really understand what was happening over there, right? So it's like everything was stemming off of the Adventure Zone, and then I needed to remember, like, well, the Adventure Zone really just came up because Griffin McElroy got his hands on 5th edition early because he's a video games critic, and they got to play this game that no one else had done. They were first, right? And then once someone's first, you got to do something that's yours because you can't
Yes.
try to just chase the thing that exists. The reason why we made it during the party is like there were a bunch of things that I think that we wanted to do that were different, but it was in response to the Adventure Zone and not like, oh, I want to do this and have it exist because it's the thing I want to do. And like I feel like I'm finally coming into my own on this on campaign 3 like this year. Oh, I'm doing the shit that I want to do, and that's me and the most hour show possible, and it took me a very long time to get there, but I wish I had known that from the beginning. It's like do the thing you think is good and then lean into it as hard as possible because some things will develop and you just cannot try to chase the first thing.
I like that. So I want to give two. I want to give a very technical one and then a kind of broader one. The very technical one is back up all your stuff.
Good one. Good one.
Buy 2 hard drives because there is a very real chance I would not be right here because we had recorded the first 4 episodes of 20-Sided Podcast. I was editing at a cafe in the West Village. I was packing up. My drive fell on the ground. It fell 2 feet. When I spun it back up, it went click, click, click. It had all my information on it. And it took me 2.5 days to download all the information I needed at like 1 kilobyte a second or something. I still don't have the raw files for the first 4 episodes. And honestly, that is the most devastated I've possibly ever been. Like when I realized I almost lost it.
Soul just left my body here.
And even worse, I had fully edited 2.5 episodes.
Oh no!
Like spent hours. Yes,
I can't. It makes me.
I immediately
it makes me feel like I'm gonna be sick.
Understand?
Especially because it was first, like, it's not it's like, oh, I'm going to do the old house style. You were literally making it up. You were literally, like, that was all ground out of your head of, like, making choices. Jesus.
It was so devastating. And like, so this is my very technical thing. 3-2-1 backup system.
Yes.
You should have 3 different things that you're backing up to. So like 3 different places in 2 different formats. So like 2 on hard drives, one in the cloud.
And one copy somewhere weird just in case.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one. That's why my mom has a backup of my laptop just in Nashville, just in case.
And like storage now is pretty cheap. Go out, buy 3 LaCie rugged hard drives that are 2 terabytes. I've had the same ones since I started the show. So like 2.5 years, and they're just filling up now.
Also, LaCie's Lacey's, they're pretty. I think they're very pretty.
Cute.
They also
nice.
look cute.
So that's my very practical advice. Just go do that. That's of all the investments to make, that's the one you make, because if you lose stuff, it truly, 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 truly hurts. The bigger one is I wanted to make an actual play podcast after I heard the Adventure Zone, which was probably for me back in like 2017, 2018. And it took me until 2021 to make it because it felt like there were so many obstacles in the way, because I would hear like Brennan Lee Mulligan or Critical. I think it was more Matt Mercer being like, I prepped for 4 hours, or you get the things where it's like, oh yeah, I took a bunch of comedy classes, so I just made it up,
Right.
and it felt like the barrier to entry was so high. And it just isn't.
That's what happened, I think, in the time. I don't know, Jasper, if you like juked it or something, and you guys were just like, oh, there's no black people in actual play. We should make this, which is an incredible fucking reason to make something. And I'm so glad it exists. But it's like, man, those walls went up, I think, around as soon as the pandemic hit.
Like, if you're starting something you've never done before, if you've never edited audio, you've never recorded audio, it will be hard for a second.
Yeah.
Like, just accept that. Like, learning any new skill, it's going to suck for a little while as you're trying to figure it out. It does not suck that bad. And you get to play fun games with your friends. So if you're thinking about doing it, go read the articles that I did in 20-sided newsletter. It'll do a lot to get you there. If you've listened to these shows, you already kind of inherently know how to make this. Go get friends that are as excited about this as you and just do it.
Yeah, start your artistic practice for sure.
It's fun.
Yeah, I think I'll quickly comment on what you said, Eric, because I think that is something that is worth noting in this particular question, which is that I didn't know, and I'm so glad I didn't, because if I had, I wouldn't have started the show. Like, fundamentally, if I'd have been more in the TTRPG space before, I wouldn't have started the show. There's no way.
I'm glad. I mean, it's incredible that the show to just praise you and the existence of Three Black Halflings in the first place, because I still remember finding the show independently, and I met you like a year and a half afterwards. It's like this thing that's totally different from a different location, from people who we haven't seen before, and then all of a sudden it's on HeadGum. It's incredible. I know that, Jasper, I joke that it's like your Cinderella, but like, it's so good that it's out of nowhere, so that it's something totally different. And I mean that like in the truest and absolute way. Sometimes something being started in like
a vacuum.
Yeah, thank you. If something being started in a vacuum allows it not to be hampered by the fear that I was seeing when the show was going, and that was hampering Brian from starting in the first place.
Yeah, or the fear that I have now. Like, I think
we all have trauma.
I think it was very much like, I remember Googling. I went on YouTube and I typed in Black D&D, and the first thing that came up was a Terry Crews one shot, and I was like, we have to do better.
Jesus.
That was, do you know what I mean? I was like, okay, we have to do better. I started the show. That was like the extent of the research that I did on like TTRPG.
I'm so glad.
If
you had gotten like one page lower, I don't know if you would have showed.
Exactly. I would have stopped. I would have stopped immediately. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing that I would say is, yes, I completely agree with you. I think comparison is like the death of art. Like, it's just like, it's so unhelpful. It's so like negative, and it's so counterintuitive, right? Because it's just like, the people that listen to you aren't doing those comparisons. You know what I mean? Like, if I like a thing, I literally listen, my two most listened to podcasts are two sports podcasts about the same team.
Yeah, dude.
They do exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Do I compare them? No. Do I care about when one is more edited than the other? No. I couldn't care less. I just want to consume as much of that thing that I like as possible. So, and I think this is the thing. Maybe this is the bit that I would love to say now. It's like, you don't have to be original all the time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. As much as like I always preach, like, don't try and be the new Critical Role or whatever. Just make something, enjoy making something, and then once you've made something, if it's working, great, carry on, and if it's not, then allow yourself to like have those tweaks and make those changes and stuff. But you don't have to, like, don't inhibit yourself from starting by going, that's been done there and that's been done there, because it's just like, well, then no one will ever start anything.
But also remember, like, literally everyone out there is a patchwork of other people. Like, everyone is a collage.
Yeah.
No one has your lived experience that, like, so you think like, and I deal with this too as like a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I know where all my influences are, so I see what I make, and I'm like, oh well, this is just The Prisoner, and this is just Doctor Who, and this is this, and this Dimension 20. But if you're not living in my experience and understanding all those things, you don't see it as a patchwork of things. Dude. You see it as a completed piece of art.
Yeah. Can I say also, because Wes Anderson has a new movie out, like, Wes Anderson and Quentin Tarantino say that they're stealing shots from 1950s movies and 60s movies, and they're like, yeah, I love it, it's awesome, and I'm gonna do it. And like, it's not stealing. Like, I know I just said stealing, but it's not. It's pastiche. Also, Jasper, the thing you said about rounding things up, the first time I saw that was in the first season of Dimension 20, when Fabian is riding on the motorcycle, and he summed all that thing up. And that's also where I heard that for the first time. again, we're just saying it together because it's good practice and you can pick it up. But like, who cares that you're grabbing something from someone else?
Yeah.
You're just impressing your players and then therefore the audience because you're trying to capture the joy.
The number one thing that was so consistent across all of my every bit of drama school training that I ever did was, and all teachers said this, despite the fact they disagreed wildly on a lot of other things, they all said, all art is theft. That is just the case. It is true. At some point, somebody probably did it. Maybe they didn't do it for as many people. Maybe it was a completely different genre or a different medium or something, but like someone has probably already done it. And if you like a thing, it is not like if you like I've always said I want there to be more shows like Three Black Halflings. A rising tide lifts all boats, first of all. And I really, really want to get to the point where Three Black Halflings is not revolutionary. It's not like something new or exciting. It's just like another black podcast. It's like
you want to be Lethal Weapon, where it's like, great. Now, maybe that's a bad comparison now, but, no. I have a point.
I really want to Three Black Halflings. I just want it to be Lethal Weapon. That's just what I want.
I mean, all the tropes of the buddy comedy come from Lethal Weapon. So
I was going to say I was going to say Three Black Halflings is the Sting.
That's way better.
But what you said, no, it's Lethal Weapon. No.
Yeah,
we can cut this. We can cut this.
No, we're keeping it all in. We should double it. Double it.
My genuine line is always that I've always wanted Three Black Halflings to be Batman, which is like the Three Black Halflings will always be there until like the community no longer needs it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of idea that whilst there's crime in Gotham, Batman will be there. It's like whilst there's not enough diversity in the TTRPG and sort of fantasy space, Three Black Halflings will always be there. But like truly, I hope to get to a point where it's just like, okay, cool. Three Black Halflings can just talk about normal stuff. Do you know what I mean? We don't have to talk about diversity anymore.
I just really want to say that Three Black Halflings is incredible at talking about that stuff. When people did not have the language, y'all gave that to me. So it's like, I understand. I know where you're coming from. And like, I hope that when I said that it felt like it was out of nowhere, that's not what I'm reducing your entire stuff to.
No, but the thing is, it absolutely was. And I think it was
only from like its inception.
But it was a fantastic thing for me to feel. I think that helped. Feeling like I caught lightning in a bottle kind of thing gave me the drive to carry on. You know what I mean? I think if it had been a very like lukewarm response, it was way too vulnerable a premise for me personally, and I think for us as creators to make that and then for it to be like, meh, it's all right. Yeah, have you heard it? Yeah, it's fine. Like, we were talking about, like, I was literally, like, during the summer of 2020, whilst we were releasing episodes, I was coming to terms with my own blackness on mic. You know what I mean? That was way too vulnerable. Like, if it hadn't have been for the, like, outpouring of, like, love and, like, welcome that came from the community, it wouldn't have carried on. Like, there's no way that I would have carried on doing it. Because it was like, if I'd have just been met with, like, meh, if you had Jasper whining about being black again, I'd have been out of there.
We needed the language.
You know what I mean? So I think it's important that it was that.
And especially of how important it was of where the game was going. And see, even us creators, we're still coming to term with our shit. Like you do in your games.
Fully.
We come to term with the actual play. You can see me becoming more and more overtly Jewish on Join the Party 100%.
I just want to get out ahead of this and say I'm really bummed at myself that I compared both of these shows to a Mel Gibson vehicle.
It was great. It was fine.
I'm just going to put it out there.
No, that's okay. I get it. Mel Gibson, Three Black Halflings are right next to each other.
Yeah, we love the Mel Gibson comparison. Right. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. But like, I also think that like, there's also, you know, even if you stumble into, and then it became an artistic choice for Three Black Halflings to be a variety show and to have all those things, interviews and talkbacks alongside actual play, just like Join the Party. The whole point of what we did was that we had the after parties to teach people how to play at the same time. That's what we were doing because no one was learning how to play from listening to the Adventure Zone and Critical Role. Yeah, you picked it up, but like actual playing, then there was a whole other hurdle. It was like the thing that got you to pick up the book, but then how do you even play the thing? And I think that like intention, the whole thing is about like do something intentionally. And regardless of what it is, do something intentionally. Yeah, folks, we talked about this for a long time, which I assumed we were going to do because it was great, and I love talking about this stuff all the time. We didn't even touch initiative all that much. I'm so happy that we did. You're all great. I could really, if people like hearing about this crunchy stuff, maybe Brian will have you back, or maybe we'll add another person as well. We'll have a 4-person conversation, and it's incredible. Hey Brian, where can people find you on the internet?
You could find me playing on My First Dungeon. We're about to do a new season where we play Good Society. Good Society is like a Regency era game of balls, of balls, Jesus, of balls and parties and high society and stuff.
Good Society, incredible game.
Yeah, incredible. If you watched Dimension 20's Court of Fey and Flowers, it's the same system that was used there.
Half of it.
Half of it.
Half of it.
You can also find me on Twitter at Mr. Brian Flaherty. That's MrBrianFlaherty. And I strongly encourage you to check out, if you liked any of this conversation or if you just like TTRPG news and stuff, the 20-sided newsletter is a newsletter I write with me, Elliot Davis, who's a great game designer in his own right. And we talked a bunch about actual play production recently, and also just talk about like cool games coming up and what we want to share and promote in the space.
Yes, I'm definitely going to link the particular one that had all the advice from the various people in the episode description.
Yeah, if you read nothing else, just go in and read. I got a bunch of great actual play producers to give like their biggest piece of advice, and I told them like make it practical and make it really helpful. And Eric joined a bunch of people alongside of Esther Ellis, who does Dungeons and Daddies, Shane O'Connell from Mission to Zix, a great improvised honestly my favorite podcast of all time, Jeff Stormer from Party of One, Jay Stroutman from Planet Arcana. But it's an excellent article with a lot of great advice, so I'd strongly encourage you to check it out.
Hell yeah. Jasper, where can people find you on the internet, dog?
Hey, you can find me at JW_Cartwright on all of my social medias. I'm doing a bunch of shows. I'm actually on Dark Dice, which I mentioned earlier. Probably why it was on top in my head. I had a great time playing with those guys. A very different TTRPG listening experience. If you're looking for something, it's a horror-based game, and it is genuinely horrific and scary, and the way they edit it is equally awful, and I was legitimately scared playing it, so that's good. I do have a bit of an exclusive. I am actually stepping down as one of the hosts of Three Black Halflings because we've actually got Mel Gibson joining the show as one of the Black Halflings. So I guess go follow Mel Gibson.
Jasper, you legitimately got me. That was pretty good.
I was there too. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Wow, Jeremy really in Jeremy's rider, it said Mel Gibson eventually needed to come on. That's incredible.
Damn it.
Look, he has to get on there. I genuinely could see your faces, and that really made it much more enjoyable. No, Mel Gibson will never be anywhere near Three Black Halflings for a plethora of obvious reasons. But go check that out. It's 3. I've ruined myself now.
That's great.
That's 3, the number 3, Black Halflings. Check out the show on all the social medias and everything like that. Eric, where can people find you on the internet? That's right, I co-hosted.
Oh my God,
you
it's
got
so
co-hosted.
good. Here's the thing, Jasper's always the co-host of the show. I just like calling him the permanent guest. It makes him sound fancy.
It does make me sound fancy. I've literally had 3 people after it got announced, like 3 of my mates being like, ooh, permanent guest, what's that? And I was like, dude, it's just a co-host. Like, I had like 3 of my close friends be like, dude, congrats.
Oh, good,
like,
let's go.
Great
That's
gift.
so
I'm
validating.
Like, yeah, man.
Yes, okay. A bunch of people wrote in the Multitude survey being like, I hope Jasper gets elevated to permanent co-host. I'm like, he is. It's
That's
a joke. I'm
it.
joking. It's joking.
My heart to these people.
You're
Thank you so
incredible.
much. It's very
You're
kind
incredible.
of you. Please keep petitioning for me to get that promotion,
God.
okay? Eric is keeping me here and refuses to give me the promotion. I keep asking him, and he says, no, I'm waiting for Mel Gibson to return my email. Then, if he says no, then you'll
That
get
was
it.
Brian.
I
did not say that. I did not say that.
This is my life now.
You can find me on the internet at L_Silvero, on Twitter, EL_SALVERO. I am on TikTok now. It's fun posting. I'm really enjoying it.
You didn't say that was your name if you were a lucha
I know,
libre
I was
wrestler.
waiting for that.
Oh, well, I was excited about TikTok.
I was excited about the Lucha
Fine,
Libre.
that's my name.
How
I was
dare
Lucha Libre
you.
Wrestler. That's my name.
Thank
I'm
you.
on TikTok. I'm at Eric V Silver. I'm posting a lot of stuff. I'm trying to do this thing where I come up with a NPC within 3 minutes after rolling on it on a table. I've done 2 of them right now.
That's
and
fun.
the thing that I've been trying to do lately that I'm setting up, I just got a new clamp so I can have 2 things going at the same time, is so that I don't have to do any edits. So it's just 3 minutes, no edits, so that people can literally see me do it on the fly. So I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun, and TikTok's fun, man. Follow me. But all this stuff, all these links are in the episode description. Go check it out. Thank you again so much, Jasper, for being here as always as the permanent co-host / guest because you're a fancy boy. And Brian, I'm really upset at the energy you brought to this episode. But I'm happy you're here.
Oh no! I'm sorry, everybody.
I'm so sorry, Brian. I came at you with the full 3 Black Halflings
No, it's
double
incredible.
barrel
It's
today.
fine.
Like,
You know what? At my heart, a comedian, and god damn it, I respect a callback.
It was hot as hell. It was absolutely hot as hell. And remember, guys, like all art, there is nothing in the instructions that say anything about feelings. Games and Feelings is produced by Eric Silver and edited and mixed by Misha Stanley. The theme music is Return to French Toast Castle by Jeff Bryce, and the art was created by Jessica Boyd. Find transcripts for this episode and all episodes at our website, gamesandfeelings.com. Until next time, press X to enjoy the podcast.